Lucy, you're one of the most experienced sellers of polar regions that I know. So
Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to sort of chat to you about selling expedition cruising to polar regions particularly, and to also sort of try and help our new to expedition cruising sellers understand where to go, how to start, and how to become as good as you are.
I mean, I first went to Antarctica in 2003 and just fell in love with it, and it's just been in my soul ever since. So I think it's the fact that I absolutely love it, and I can still talk as passionately about it as I could 22 years ago. And I do think that comes across with our clients. And I think the fact that I have been numerous times, they trust me. And what I'm telling them isn't just that I haven't just read it in a book, or I've actually genuinely experienced Antarctica, Arctic, Greenland.
That's great. And how many times have you been to Antarctica? I'm sure you counted it.
Yeah, I've been 5 times to Antarctica, and I'm going again in November, so it'll be my 6th time. I mean, for me, November, early season, is just the most beautiful time to be there. And that was when I first went, was early season, and that's why I just sort of fell in love with it. There's still a huge amount of sea ice about. It's still incredibly pristine. You've got all the penguins who've come ashore to start nesting, so there's a lot of activity in the penguin rookeries. It's a very comical time. They're not the most intelligent of creatures, but really comical to watch. And you can just stand and watch them for hours as they interact with each other. They build their nests out of pebbles, so they'll toddle down to the beach to get a pebble, pick it up in their beak, toddle back to the nest, and their neighbour will think, I can't be bothered to walk down to the beach. I'm just going to nick that one. And then you can see the other one come back. I'm sure I had more pebbles. So it's a really special time to be there. It's waking up from the winter. As you go into December, you've got the penguins sitting on eggs. Obviously still the wildlife is coming down. You've got the whales have started to come down. And then as you get to the end of December, January time, the chicks start hatching. And obviously that's quite magical. With these tiny little chicks in January, and then as you go into sort of towards the end of January, beginning of February, the chicks are slightly bigger, a little bit more fluffy, a bit more curious, and you can see the sort of poor parents having to sort of constantly feed them, and they're just following the parents around, feed me, feed me, feed me. And then as you go into sort of February time, you've got the whales sort of en masse. It's a fantastic time for whales. And March is coming to sort of the end of the season, with the whales down there. A lot of the penguins, in March have started doing their catastrophic molt. So that's when they have to sort of lose all their feathers and regrow their waterproof feathers. So basically that means they can't go out to sea. So they just look pretty fed up, quite frankly, because they haven't eaten for maybe 3-4 weeks.
When you talk to clients, because my impression often is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that very often people who want to go to Antarctica would have probably done a little bit of the research, and very often will have that assumption that the best time to visit is during the peak time, which is usually January, February. Do you try to convince them or open the mind to consider other times, or how does that work?
Absolutely. It's a question of sort of trying to find out the reason they're going, what it is they want to see. And a lot of them, many of them haven't done any research at all. It's surprising how many, it's their 7th continent. It's their last big tick. So some aren't even aware that you can't go in our summer months. So it's just trying to sort of educate people. And sometimes what they really, really want to see is whales. So then in February, March. Others, they do want to see that sort of pristine environment. So you need to go early season when the penguin colonies are still covered in snow. They're not nearly as smelly. And towards the end of the season, the snow that's around sort of starts quite dirty, quite smelly, but also this sort of green algae grows on it. So it's not the Antarctica that you would see in the photos. So if it's the pristineness, definitely early season. And I sometimes think, they perceive January as the best time to go, but actually it's the most expensive time to go. So if you're not desperate to see penguin chicks, then don't go then. You will still have the most amazing time whenever you go.
The fact that you traveled in 2003, I'm sure you've noticed a change in the sector, right? Would you like to talk about that and just walk us through how, in your opinion, things changed since that first time?
First went in 2003 on a small Russian research vessel, 90 passengers. We didn't see a single other ship down there when we were down there. It was just the most incredible experience. We had blue sky and sunshine every day. Because of the size of the ship, we did 2 landings every day, for sometimes 3, maybe 4 hours. So really, really maximising our time down there. And they do seem to be getting bigger.
The ships, the expedition ships, or
and they're certainly becoming more luxury. I mean, if you saw the ship that I first went on, there was nothing luxury about it.
So touching a little bit on that, because this is something that well, my personal background is Silversea, so I come from a luxury expedition cruise company. And how would you say the luxury expedition cruise proposition differs from a more sort of adventure style, and how would you pitch different type of vessel to different type of client?
You need to speak to your client and find out what it is that they want. Someone who's into their luxury is not going to want to go on one of the older ships, shall we say. And it really depends what your client. To me, sort of going on the more luxury ship, it's perhaps more about the onboard experience rather than the offboard experience. The ships do tend to be a little bit bigger. And certainly when I went with Hapag-Lloyd, again, incredible experience, but we didn't have as much time off the ship. We tended to be split into 2 groups. It was managed slightly differently, I felt. We still had fantastic lectures, but I just don't felt we had as long a shore as I would perhaps have liked.
Okay, understood. And the talking about the client, because one of the first questions we find we get asked by our new to expedition cruise sellers is they don't always understand who is the client for expedition. Like they want us to prompt them with some kind of ideas. Who is the kind of person who would enjoy this type of holiday?
I think, going to Antarctica is not a cruise in the true sense of the cruise.
Yes.
It is definitely expedition cruising. You've got to be sort of very flexible, very open-minded, because every day the itinerary will change. They'll stand up in the evening and do a briefing. So if people need to know exactly where they're going, I want to go to Port Lockroy, I want to go through the Lemaire Channel, it's trying to explain to them that it's expedition cruising. The ports aren't, the landing sites are booked, but you might not be able to get there.
Absolutely.
The weather might change. All sorts of things can happen. So the expedition team will have plan A, B, C, D, and E, and you will get somewhere. But I think the client has to understand that flexibility. They have to understand that the weather plays a huge part in this, and obviously safety as well.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, we went to South Georgia and we only managed 1 landing because we just had the worst weather ever. But the safety is paramount. So I think guests have to understand that the itinerary is just a suggestion of what might happen. And it's just making them sort of aware, because mainstream cruising, you know exactly what ports you're going to on what day. You are incredibly remote. So I think you do have to be flexible, you have to be understanding of the environment you're in and respect it.
What would you say are the best tools, or how can a travel advisor interested in selling expedition cruising get good at that without necessarily having an immediate possibility to go to the place and experience themselves? What would you say are the key things they have to learn?
But all the cruise operators have fantastic webinars. Watch the webinars, pick the webinars about what it's like in Antarctica or expedition cruising and how it differs. And there's so many webinars out there. I mean, the ECN do loads of that style of thing, and it's just investing a little bit of your time to get the most out of it.
So for example, when you attend a ship visit or have an opportunity to travel on a fam trip, how important would you say that experience is for you to be able to translate it to the client?
I mean, ship visits are always useful. So, if anyone gets the opportunity, definitely go on them, because every ship is a little bit different. It's got its own quirk, or I mean, even compared to sort of the sister ships where you've got Ocean Albatross, Ocean Victory,
Yeah.
they are different. You know,
Yeah,
they're not
yeah.
identical inside the.
Just talking about the travelers just a little bit more. Are you seeing a change in who travels on board expedition ships since you started selling it back in 2003?
Yes, I would say we were getting younger people.
Okay.
I think it was very much a trip for when people had retired, had the time, had the money.
Yeah.
And I think we are noticing younger people now booking these trips.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy. I
Pleasure.
think this is an incredible opportunity for travel advisors to learn a little bit more about selling Antarctica, and from one of the masters.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't know about that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.